just to let you know, I have, it doesn't come out at the top there, but I have produced 46, almost 50 movies now over the last one. They wrote a book about me in England, The Egos Have Landed. This was like a funny title at the time. And they are, Ladies in Lavender was the last film I made before going to the National Film and Television School. It's because my mother, she said to me, she got to the age of like 85, and she said, "Nick, I can now tell you the truth. I don't like any of your movies." So I said to myself, shit, because I have many brothers and a sister and so on, and so I'm thinking of her will. So I said, so I thought to myself, I have to find a movie that my mother will like. And one of the big British actors said to me one day that he had a project, and the project involved two very old people, you know, one of whom has a crush on a very young man. And I said, fantastic, my mother is going to love this. So I said to him, who will write it? And he said, I will. And he's an actor, not writer. So my heart sank. And then I thought of my mother, and I went, Charles, very good idea. I said, who's going to direct it? And he went, I am going to direct it, Nick. He has never directed anything. My heart sank. But then I thought of my mother, and I said, brilliant idea, Charles. You will be a great director. So it's funny how projects come about, and he did a lovely job. And my mother, she loved the movie. We had the premiere with the Queen of England, so she was, my mother was particularly pleased. And so it was a very nice experience when you do something not for commercial reasons, not for artistic reasons, but because you want your mother's love. You know, and I was like 55 at the time. Whoops. And this is my last movie, which is Guy Pearce and Dakota Fanning. This was finished this year. It premiered at the Venice Film Festival, and then it went to Toronto Film Festival, and it just last week before last, played London Film Festival. It's a tough film. It's very violent. I think times have changed, because for me it's not violent. I mean, it's violent, but it's, you know, fine. It's not like a problem. But for the modern audience, they were quite upset about the amount of violence, especially violence to women in the film. And so it was an interesting experience. It's a very good film, even if I say it myself. So just going backwards a little bit, you know, after The Virgin, first of all, myself and my partner, we had a cinema in London by King's Cross Station. It's now a big clubbing venue, but we had it as a cinema. This was like our audience. We played what's called repertory cinema, so we played older films from across the world, but a lot of American independent movies from people like John Waters and others. But we then started distributing movies. So we distributed movies like Evil Dead, Oshima's Merry Christmas. We also distributed some other Japanese movies in reissue, like Rashomon, Yojimbo, and other classical Japanese movies. We distributed maybe 600-700 movies. I'm just picking some of the Japanese classics out. So we thought, we are distributing all these movies. It cannot be that hard to make them. So we started making our own movies. The first one called Company of Wolves, and we were very lucky because it, you know, it was a big hit in the UK. In the same way with my first record at Virgin, it was a very big hit in the UK, and so we were very lucky. And it's kind of a modern version of Little Red Riding Hood, the British fairy tale. Well, it's not British actually; it's like European fairy tale. So we were doing those, and then we started Mona Lisa, which got Oscar nomination for Bob Hoskins and also won the Cannes Film Festival, but we were also trying out a musical, kind of Hollywood-style, modern musical called Absolute Beginners with the late David Bowie as the big star in it. And, it was interesting because this movie did a big, good box office in the UK, but the critics hated it. They said, absolute disaster. And in America, it did no box office, but the critics loved it and thought it was a brilliant film. So it depends where you are in the world as to what people, will think. And I had a royal premiere of this film with Princess Anne, the daughter of the Queen. And I remember her saying, the film is set in 1959 London. And it's about two young people experiencing the music, the art, and so on of kind of underground London of 1959 by Colin McInnes. And in one of the early scenes, actor and actress, they are walking over this bridge. And I'm sitting next to Princess Anne, and she says to me, Nick, that bridge was not there in 1959 when the movie was set. So I said, of course it was there. We wouldn't make a mistake like that and put something that was after 1959 in the 1959. She said, Nick, do not argue with me, like royalty to a peasant. And I said, no, it definitely was there. It was definitely. She said, Nick, do not argue with me. I know because I opened it. She cut the ribbon to open the official bridge, unfortunately after 1959. And we did a movie called A Crying Game, which was the biggest independent movie in America in the year in which it was released. And it was pretty big. It had 6 Oscar nominations, and it won, including for Best Film. And it won only one of them for Best Script. And so we were doing well, but then we went bankrupt. And I have a longer thing, but there was a financial crisis in the UK. We had borrowed too much money. We couldn't pay our bills, so it was, time. And but we started again, and we started with these movies. This had Oscar nomination as well. Little Voice for the actress, for Brenda Blethyn, and the British actress. And Fever Pitch is it's my favourite, but not as a film, because it's a great film about the Arsenal Football Club. I'm a big football fan, and the Arsenal Football Club is like the best in the Premiership. But they were quite interesting. Backbeat was quite a lot based on real life, and Backbeat was about the Beatles before they were famous, the English pop group the Beatles, before they were famous, and was set in Hamburg at the time, and was really a story about the 5th Beatle who died and was never in the band when they became famous. And he had a German girlfriend, and which was quite. There's a scene. Well, actually, it's not in the movie, but it's in the script. You'll be interested in. So the main character, Stuart Sutcliffe, he says in the script to his girlfriend, he says, "Look, the only problem is that my father. This is set in like 1959-60. My father tells me that you Germans have no sense of humor," which is, I know, not true, but that's in the script. And she says, so she thinks for a bit, and she says, "So, we don't have a sense of humor. We bombed Liverpool," which for an English person is funny, but as long as you're not a Liverpudlian. But the interesting thing was, I like this scene a lot because it's counter stereotype, because it brings out the humor of a German character, and so I wanted to keep it in the movie, but the director did not. And so we decided we have little test screening. In other words, we show the movie while we are cutting it to a group of mainly friends, but honest friends who will really tell us what is working, what is not working, and give us feedback to help us to get the movie to work. So we played a movie, and the director says, Nick, we will keep the movie in, keep the scene in, if everyone laughs. So we play the movie, everyone laughs, I go out to speak to Ian. I said, Ian, we keep it in. Yeah, everybody laughed. And he went, no, Nick, we're not keeping it in. I said, what do you mean, everybody laughed? He said, no, Nick, not everyone laughed, only you laughed. But when you laugh yourself, you kind of think that everybody else is laughing. So it's not in the movie. And, but also this is is quite interesting here because 1, 2, 3 of those films were bought to me by ex-girlfriends. So this is important, I think, when you're at a university. You know, this is Uzbek proverb again, do not slam the door you are going to have to come back through. So these were, you know, so of those 3 movies, the Last Orders, Calendar Girls, and Fever Pitch were all bought to me by ex-girlfriends because they kept the relationships going, because they were very intelligent people, they were good at their jobs, even if we were not in relationship anymore. And I just always say to my students, like, when you are working with people in close situation, like in a university or in a small school like ours, because we are only 350 students, don't fall out with people. Personally, that means you cannot then work with them on your films. So it's just an important thing.